Alright, Milton from TeamFFLEX. You're on my show, First Callouts. This one's for all you competitors out there, where we talk about everything competition related. Today I want to address a question I get all the time, asking how comparisons work on stage for the Npc, the IFBB. What's the whole gig there? What's going on? What's actually happening? As an athlete, and even for a lot of coaches, a lot of people don't actually know. So I want to cover it here for you today. Please do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, and then share out this video. I'm Ryan Milton from TeamFFLEX. You are on First Callouts. As of right now, the stage might not be around because of the pandemic and everything going on, causing the shows to be delayed. But regardless, fam, you competitors out there, it will be back. It is not an if, it is a when, and then it for sure will be back on. You will be competing again, you will be on stage again. So I want to keep all you guys still informed with all this same type of content we always do, where I'm not just talking about quarantine and everything right now. I want to talk also about competition related stuff that's going to help you when you do get back to the stage. And one of the questions that I get all the time that I thought would be beneficial to cover for you today is what's going on during comparisons. Kind of how does that whole judging process work and everything like that. I know a lot of the top level judges, I know a lot of the head judges, and I'll give you my 2 cents based on what I've learned from them directly. This can be helpful. Obviously, if you ever get a chance to ask any of these judges, ask them yourself too, because they'll even get a better answer probably, alright? Truth is though, here's how it works when you're going out on stage. You are getting judged on the criteria that you fit the division, okay? And so there's a different criteria for each division you do, whether that's bikini, men's physique, wellness, classic bodybuilding, so on and so forth. There's a criteria that you have to fit. A certain level of muscularity, a certain level of conditioning, and all that comes together with presentation and your posing and everything else. And that's really what they're looking for when you go out on stage. Now, the variances in muscularity and conditioning and presentation and all that change depending on the category. The poses are obviously going to change as well. They're going to change depending on whatever division you are in, but the qualifications in the judge's mind and the criteria is very specific to each one of these divisions, alright? And so you got to understand that right out the gate. Now what happens during comparisons, which is the question I always get, is basically here's how it works. You've gone out, you've done your presentation, did your routine, the judges looked at you, they wrote down notes. Now when all competitors go to the sidelines and they're sitting on the outside waiting as we wait for the first call out, this is the moment where everybody in the audience start cheering for their friends, yelling numbers, coaches are yelling, everybody's yelling, the judges are deliberating. Basically what they're doing is they're combining all their scores, okay? They're combining all their notes and relaying this information to whoever is the head judge at the center of the table on whatever competition, on whatever day that is. And basically what happens is they relay this information, scores get tallied up, head judge makes the final decisions on who's getting the first call out. And so then you'll hear the numbers come out, this number here, boom, this number here, boom, this number here, boom, 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 boom. And now all of the athletes that are in that first call out are coming out on stage. Now, during these comparisons, obviously, this is the first call out. They've called it out. They're going to call out the next call outs as well, the second call out, the third call out, the fourth if applicable. And every time that they do this, which you have to understand, is you are now being compared, okay? And a lot of people don't necessarily understand the motion of if you get moved here or there, what that means. Well, there's a few things it could mean. So you're getting called out on the center line. If you're in the first call out, if you're in the second, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're being compared to the athletes around you. So if you get into the first call out, that's a good sign you're in the top, level of that class of athletes. You could be in the first place. You could be in second, third, fourth, fifth. Who knows where you're placing at this time. And that's exactly why you've been called out. So the judges can look at you compared to the rest of their top 5, top 6, 7 athletes and say, all right, well, let's see what we're actually looking at. Who does have the better muscularity? Who does have the better conditioning? Who does have the better presentation and the better posing? Who is the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth athlete? And so that's what judges are looking at. And a lot of times if you watch the judging panel, I sit right behind them all the time at every show I can, and I'm always hearing, well, not really hearing, but seeing, in other words, the judges deliberating. Okay, they'll talk, they'll be like, hey, what do you think here? What do you think there? They're talking, they're associating. The panel is working together, in other words, and that is basically what ends up for the movements and a lot of the comparisons that you see. So if a judge says, hey, let's have this one switch with this one, that's because they want to see what you actually look like now compared to the other side of the lineup. What a lot of people that don't understand the judging practice, I think, don't get is that, the athletes over here are being compared one-on-one to each other. The athletes in the middle are being compared one-on-one to each other, and the ones on the side of them. The athletes over here are being compared to one-on-one on the side of them. And that's why we always kind of look to the center of the class as the person who's doing the best, because basically the comparisons, in other words, are working from the center outward. So if you're on the outside of a call out, it is likely you're not in the top 3. But is that a definite answer? No, it's not. Because you could get moved. You could have been moved out for one reason or another. A lot of movements that take place, people always assume because one athlete got put to the center, it means they're winning the class. But in reality, it could just be a movement from the judges to say, hey, we want to compete you next to these other people you weren't next to, right? And so that's why we see a lot of movement in and out. And you don't really know what it means as a spectator, as a coach, as someone in the audience. I'll tell you what, the judges very much know what they're doing. They know what they want to see. They know what they're trying to look for. And they do it very efficiently and very effectively. And it's something we just simply will not understand because we're not sitting at the table. We don't know what they're talking about. We don't know what's being said. We don't know what's going on. And in reality, as coaches, spectators, audience members, we just are not even getting the same perspective as the judges at the table. So these comparisons, these movements could happen for a number of reasons. Getting moved to the center could be a very good sign. Getting moved out of the center could be a bad sign. But vice versa, you don't really know what's going to happen until the end of the night when things are getting delivered, these trophies are getting put down, and you're getting your real placing. Basically what happens is the judges are all looking at the same thing, they're all moving things around, they're all deciding who to move here, who to move there, who to, try these comparisons with, and they're comparing their scores, comparing their notes until they compile it down to the actual final placings. And that's usually what happens between prejudging and finals. A lot of the judging happens at prejudging, but it's not a done deal in the perspective of when you get to finals. They're not looking at you anymore. They are. They're still taking notes. They're still deliberating. And especially when it comes to these overall moments. So, the overalls are when you've won your class, all of the class winners are going to compete and see who wins the entire division for that competition. And that's another reason you really want to stay on point. You want to keep, your stuff together between prejudging and finals. You don't want to go get crazy, overeat, get out of condition. You want to stay where you're supposed to be as you come into that finals. I want to address about how comparisons work is I know, having coached so many athletes over the years, that a lot of times people, they don't understand how the judges even are judging from when they're on stage, when the athlete's on stage looking down. They feel like, oh no, they didn't see me enough, they didn't pay attention to me enough, they didn't notice me enough, I got cheated. This is stuff you hear all over social media. People say it all the time. I'm a pretty influential person in the competition space, and people will ask me about this. They'll message me about this, people I don't even know. But the point is they think, the judging can be inaccurate. It can be unfair. It could be they didn't look at you long enough, or they were talking or whatever. The point is here, though, is you don't understand how often the judges are actually looking at you, and you also don't understand how good at their job they are. So if they look up and they look for 10 seconds and they know what's going on, they got their places in their mind, they got their scorings done, they don't need to continue to look up. Nothing's going to change that. And what happens as a competitor is a lot of you are in your own head thinking you are the best, the guaranteed no matter what, you're the top. Every competitor always thinks they're the top, let's be honest. Every single person that ever did a prep, shows up at a show, thinks they should win the show. And that's the sport of bodybuilding. But the truth is, the judges are not that way. The judges will look at you and they will decide who is the winner based on who's actually the winner, not who thinks they're the winner in their own head, right? So they're going to look and they might not need a lot of time because these judges are well trained. They do a lot of effective work. You'll see as things get very close, as quality of shows are very high, that the judges do deliberate for a lot longer, right? At the pro level, the IFBB pro level, if you've ever seen a pro show go on in conjunction with an amateur show, NPC level, right? They happen together. Well, what happens you'll see all the time is NPC is judged much more quickly, right? You'll be able to see them get on stage, they turn them a couple times, they'll know what they need to do. And this is because the quality variance is highly different, right? You'll have a few athletes right away in a call out of maybe 4, 5, 10, whatever it is, that you would pick out right away as clearly not in the top. And it's much easier to decide that because there's a high variance of physiques, first timers, people that have done it a long time, competitors that are amateurs that didn't do a great prep, right? There's a high variance that shows up. And to see an outstanding athlete in the NPC, it does happen, but it's definitely not the normal like it is at the pro level. The pro level, you'll see them judge the pros for 30, 45 minutes sometimes, with bikini or men's physique or any of these shows because basically the quality is so good. These are the pro athletes, right? They come in and it's literally down to the most minute little things that make the difference in placing. And so they'll compare them all day. They'll compare them for, 20, 30 minutes. They'll move them around. They'll swap them in and out. They'll do different call-outs. They'll do all that through that whole period of time because basically what they're looking for is, the same type of stuff, the same type of criteria, but the quality is so good that it becomes much, much harder to judge. And so I think a lot of NPC competitors especially think that they sometimes get overlooked. They think that they're not being judged fairly, whatever, but the truth is the judges are very good at what they do. They're looking at you when you're on the sideline, you're probably not paying attention. They're looking at you when you walk on and off stage, you're probably not paying attention. They're looking at you all the time, especially if you did other classes, right? Like if you did a novice and you already came out and now you're in the open, you're still getting judged, but they've already seen you. They already got your number. They know what you're doing. They know where you're at. They know what your physique looks at. They already got your scores down. They don't necessarily need to keep looking at you with a magnifying glass to know where you sit. And so this is important stuff you want to know about this judging process and sort of how all this works. That's my 2 cents from a coach's perspective. Obviously, I coach a lot of athletes. I know a lot of the judges. I go to a lot of the seminars. I'm very involved in trying to be on top of this knowledge as best I can. But I'm not at all going to tell you that I replace the opinion of any of these judges or anything like that. So if you really want to ask them more about it, go and ask any of your judges at your show. I strongly encourage you to do that anyway. Stay till the end of the night, watch all the other athletes compete, and then get your feedback from your judges. You can ask them more about the specific process. I'll tell you the truth though. The competitors that feel they've been overlooked or they didn't get a fair thing or whatever, they didn't get judged correctly, are the ones that did not stay to get their feedback. They're the ones that didn't try to understand the process. They're the ones that think they understand it because of stuff on Instagram or whatever, but in reality, they're not getting anything from the judges themselves. And a lot of times, if you actually talk to any of these judges, they will give you such a great explanation and a great breakdown and great feedback about you and your physique that you literally will be able to look at it and take it and say, okay, now I get it. That makes a lot of sense. Actually, now I do feel much more like I was judged appropriately, like I got judged fairly, and guess what? I do have things to work on. There are things I need to make better. The problem is a lot of competitors don't do that. A lot of competitors, they don't place the way they wanted, and anybody who doesn't win first, let's be honest, you didn't place the way you wanted, and then they storm out, they go eat, they want to eat something, so they're just going to blow it off. They're not even going to come to finals, or even if they do, they're going to come last minute. They're not going to stay and watch anybody else. They're for sure not staying until the end of the night to talk to any of the judges, and those are the competitors that carry that on with with them and they never really got the feedback, they never really understood, they never really got, what they needed to do to improve and get better and go forward, and then that's why you hear a lot of the stuff you hear. The truth is, at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, the judges in the NPC and the IFBB are the most qualified judges in the sport of bodybuilding. They always have, they always will be. They are always doing the best they possibly can, and they are very good at what they do. A lot of times I'm going to tell you straight up, if you think that that is wrong in one way or another, judging was off, comparisons were off, they didn't look at you long enough, they didn't compare you, they didn't score you correctly, it's simply because you don't know the criteria, okay? I'm a coach. I train hundreds and thousands of athletes over the years. I do my best. I got, pros we work with. I got a ton of people that win first place. I got people placed in top 5 at every show. And the thing is, I still don't know nearly as much as these judges know in how they do what they do and what they do. I do my best with the information I've learned and what I got. Point is, all you in the audience, most of you competitors, and a lot of coaches, honestly, don't even have as much knowledge as I have regarding this. So really what you got to do is invest your time and to learn more, talk to the judges, pay attention, get your feedback, stay after the show, learn and grow, get better, do more, go further. That's how you do it. That's how you get yourself into first call all the time. That's how you win your shows. That's how you go from amateur to pro, and so on and so forth. That's what you need to do, all right? So I strongly encourage that. Please check that out. There's more info on this on NPC News Online, everything like that. I'm Milton from TeamFFLEX. This is the end of my show, First Callouts. Hope you learned something today. If you compete and you think this was helpful in any way, please share it out. Please subscribe to my channel. I got tons of great content for all you competitors and all you fitness people in general. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Coach Ryan is out.